Hi everyone, before we get into this week's episode, just want to do a little call out for feedback. We are at that point in the series where we are reaching the end, and I'm going to be reading listener feedback. I'm also going to be counting down the listeners' top 10 home invasion movies of all time on the final episode, which drops in a couple of weeks. So I would love to hear from you guys. Drop me an email, evolutionofhorror@gmail.com. Let me know your feedback. Have you enjoyed our home invasion season? Have you hated the home invasion season? Were you furious with me for including movies like Home Alone but not including movies like Mandy or Dead Man's Shoes? Let me know your thoughts, and I will be reading feedback in a couple of weeks. Also, if you'd like to add your top 10 home invasion movies, please send them along too, and I will collate the results and count down listeners' favourites in our conclusion episode. That's evolutionofhorror@gmail.com. All right, let's get on with our home invasion also-rans.
Hi, どちら様?
奥様でいらっしゃいますか?
We're so sorry to bother you, sir, but my phone got wet and she left hers at her house.
Hello, Mother.
Please, get up. Make yourselves comfortable.
I have extended my consciousness to this house. All systems here are now under my control.
You're a very bad girl.
If you don't do it, they will all get sick and die. Bob will die, Kim will die, your wife will die. They will all get sick and die. One per hour.
Kind of like we knocked on your door.
Welcome back to the Evolution of Horror. My name is Mike Munzer, and as ever, I am your host. In this podcast, we explore and dissect the history and the evolution of the horror genre, one subgenre at a time. And we are currently hurtling towards the end of our 9th season exploring the evolution of home invasion. This is part 34, and in this week's episode, as we begin to wrap up the season, we're taking a look back at some of the movies that we didn't discuss in depth and bringing you a list of additional recommendations. It's our Also Rans episode, so what we're going to be doing is just whizzing through a whole list of titles that we didn't have time to discuss in depth this season. So prepare to jot down some of the titles that we're going to run through over the next hour. This also means that, of course, this episode will be completely spoiler-free. We will not be spoiling any of the titles that we recommend. So joining me for the Also Rans special, well, who else would it be? I only let him out onto the main feed once a year. Usually I keep him confined and chained up in the dark dungeons of Patreon, but, you know, you've got to give him something. It's his little Christmas treat. Welcome, Brad Hanson. Hello, Brad.
Hello, mate. Long time no speak.
It's lovely to have you here talking home invasion. Now, classically, over the last few seasons, I've been like, Brad, do you like vampires? Do you like sci-fi? Do you like, you've been like, nah. Home invasion, what are your thoughts?
Actually quite like them.
Hey!
Quite enjoy them. I think there's obviously something inherently terrifying about the place that you call sanctuary or safety being invaded by someone who wishes to do you harm. And I think we can all kind of appreciate that and know that feeling, you know, when you don't feel quite comfortable in the place where you should feel the most comfortable. So I think they're always quite effective and evocative movies, and they're so varied as you'll see in this gargantuan, I believe is the word we should be using for this list of movies.
Yes. Have you ever you live in South London, have you ever experienced any kind of break-in, burglary, home invasion, anything like that?
Sure have, yeah, in Tooting of all places.
Wow.
I was living, above a shop with 4 other smelly boys, and I was out unfortunately I was out at the time, but basically what happened is someone gained access to the property and one of the guys was in, and they tried to go into his bedroom and he thought it was one of us. So he was like, yo, what's up? And then they nicked the stuff and ran out, and
shit.
I lost my laptop and my phone and all sorts of stuff.
Oh God. It's a pretty horrible thing, that, isn't it? Like knowing that somebody's been in your in your space and touching your
Rifling.
shit. Yeah, rifling, exactly. Pretty grim. Well, yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about... we've got so many movies to recommend because, as you mentioned, the subgenre is broad. I've gone broad with how I've covered it this season, so we're going to try and take all of that into account as we go through some of these movies. How did you find compiling this list? This, as you mentioned, gargantuan list, right?
Well, I mean, the first thing that happens is as soon as you announce a new series, I start making a list, and then what happens invariably is your guests chip away at the things that I want.
Yeah.
As is customary. However, there's no amount of chipping that could get... Like, there is too many bangers.
These are bangers. A lot
there's
of these.
some
I'm looking
great
at these
stuff.
lists. Yeah, I'm looking at this list now, and like, actually, a lot of these could have had a full deep dive discussion, I imagine. So, absolutely worth mentioning. So what we usually do is we come up with a list of about 10 or so films, but because there are so many this time, and because Home Invasion is kind of so broad, we've kind of categorized it, right? So we've got a kind of handful of movies to recommend in each category within Home Invasion.
That's correct, yes. So the thing is, so many things are kind of close, kind of similar, but also not similar at all in any regard. So finding categories to kind of put stuff in was a bit difficult. Some write themselves, as you'll find out as we go along. But particularly this first section, I would call at first we were calling it general home invasion.
Yeah, more classic home invasion, right?
But I've repurposed it to call it grand designs.
Lovely.
Where all these people have got a plan, and the plan involves getting into your house.
Yeah, getting into your house and fucking you up. Okay, excellent. All right, so what is first on our list, Bradley?
The very first film, I'd be remiss if it wasn't mentioned, would be 2018's Mandy by Panos Cosmatos.
Under the crimson, primordial sky, the wretched warlock reached into the dark embrace. His fist closed around the serpent's eye. Strange and eternal.
I need you to get me that girl I saw. You know what to do.
Of course, we had to start with this one, right? This is the Panos Cosmatos film from 2018, starring Nicolas Cage and Andrea Riseborough. A bit of an oversight on my part that I haven't given it its own episode because it is a bit of a modern classic for a lot of people, including yourself, right, Brad?
Yeah, I remember the early morning at London Film Festival where we both excitedly sat next to each other for...
Yes.
And I don't think we really knew what we were getting into that day when...
No.
We thought... I think we'd both been under the pretenses that Nick Cage had been in a 10-year drought of DTV dreck. And what we actually got hit with was this kind of fucking psychotropic LSD hit of home invasion horror that hit every high point you could possibly hope to hit with something so obscenely bizarre yet humanly grounded.
It really is, actually. And at the time... I came out of it a little bit more lukewarm than you did, only because I loved that first half so much, the stuff with him and Andrea Riseborough and everything up until that home invasion, and then it goes so kind of big Nick Cage in the second half that it started to lose me a little bit. But there is some amazing stuff in this, to be fair. And actually, I almost forgot that this was a home invasion because it goes off into such like crazy places in the second half. Of course, it is all grounded in this very real, very scary home invasion sequence that happens in the first act. Yeah,
exactly. And, it's a beautiful story of, what happens when you lose love and the kind of crazy shit it makes you do.
Yeah.
Including wielding massive chainsaws and liberating giant tigers. It's going to happen it happens to the best of us.
It does. So they go, I mean, we didn't even really do a synopsis actually of Mandy, did we? But we've kind of briefly gone through it there. But yeah.
These people, these listeners, they must have watched it by now. Come on. But if you didn't, it's a story of a guy called Red Miller, played by Nicolas Cage, and Andrea Riseborough is the titular Mandy. a cult leader takes a fancy to her and decides to break into their home and steal her in hopes to co-opt her into said cult. Nick Cage isn't very happy about that, so he goes on a bloody quest for revenge in a sword squashling. Why did my brain stop then? Shut down.
You just shut down completely.
Swashbuckling. There we go.
There it is.
Yes, bloody tale of revenge. It's great.
Lovely stuff. There you go. So that's Mandy. You can't stream it for free anywhere, sadly, at the moment, but you can buy or rent it, either on streaming or physical media. So there you go. All right, what's next?
Another tour de force in revenge and accessing people's homes and causing all manner of issues. They would, of course, be 2004's Dead Man's Shoes, directed by Shane Meadows.
What did you do to him? What did you do?
I'm off. See you in a bit, yeah? See you in a bit.
Hey, we'll find you!
It's Anthony's brother, isn't it? It's Anthony's brother.
You know the lads had this ridiculous idea that...
Yeah, it was me.
Make me very nervous, Richard.
Well, you should be.
If I were you, I'd get in that car and I'd get out of here, man. Because I'll hit you all.
This is a grim, scary film, isn't it? You know, I was talking to my guest James Rendell last week on the podcast, and he was saying that the genre that scares him the most is this kind of like brutal, unflinching British kitchen sink kind of like type of a movie, like the movies by people like Shane Meadows, because they're pretty unflinching, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's shining a light on the kind of atrocities that normal regular folk can do. You know, these are guys that you'd be sat across from at the pub and you don't realize the level of sort of hatred and vengeance that can sometimes exist in people's hearts. And Paddy Considine's performance in this particularly is so stoically rageful. Like, he's so calm in how much he hates these people and the revenge that he wants to seek on these people for the things that they've done to his family. And it's a fucking remarkable movie once again. That, you know, the first time it ends and you sit there in the kind of stink of sadness that it's washed over you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a cinematic experience I'll ever forget. The first time with Dead Man's Shoes. Yeah. In subsequent rewatches, it loses some of its power because you know where, and you end up doing something else where you're kind of trying to spot things.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
And
and be like, can I see him?
Yeah.
Oh no spoilers.
Yeah.
But I love it. I think it's a remarkable film, and one I think that once again probably warranted its own episode, mate.
Oh, it absolutely did. Maybe one day we'll come back to some of these movies, as we've done in the past with our Also Rans. You know, they've since gotten some good deep dive discussions. I'm sure Dead Man's Shoes will at some point.
Yeah, the Mike Munster apology tour.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I've got to find ways to keep this podcast going once we've done all the major subgenres. So that'll be it. It will be the apology tour. Yeah. So there you go. So that's Dead Man's Shoes from 2004. You can stream that in the UK on 4OD. All right, what's next, Bradley?
It's 1991's Cape Fear, directed by Martin Scorsese.
Oh.
Somebody's out there.
What's your connection with this fella? I was his lawyer. But you shagged him somehow, right?
And what was he in prison for?
No, really. What did you do? Have you been following me? It's a small town. Everywhere you turn, I guess we're gonna run into each other.
Dad, you should have just punched him out. Yeah, you know how to fight fair. Do you do that for a living?
This guy, he threatened you? He's clever, so that the law can't touch him.
Another big hitter, right?
Huge. This might be the biggest film I've ever had an opportunity to speak about on an Also Ran.
A Scorsese, De Niro,
tour de force
from the 90s.
Unbelievable. The fact that once again, Mike Munster Apology Tour 2024 coming quick and fast.
I know. I was too busy doing like Fear with Mark Wahlberg from the 90s rather than doing Cape Fear.
This is what happens when you let some people pick their own stuff. I should be talking about Fear right now, and Cape Fear should have had an episode, but
it's a good point.
We move.
It's a good point.
It's happened. Of course, this film is the classic, once again, tale of revenge as Max Cady leaves prison and decides to take upon another bout of vengeance against the prosecutor he feels has wronged him. And we've got great performances here, obviously by Robert De Niro, Nick Nolte, Juliette Lewis, in which Max Cady kind of insidiously worms himself into their lives and offers these kind of vague threats that kind of stoke up this feeling of paranoia that kind of exhibits in Nolte's performance, which I think he's actually probably the best he's ever been in any film. Nolte is in Cape Fear. It's a wonderfully orchestrated and conducted movie by Scorsese, which is once again a remake. Gregory Peck.
Indeed. Gregory Peck and the great Robert Mitchum, but also worth a watch. The original.
This didn't even make the also. That didn't even make the also ads. Fuck. Well, it's now. We've said it now, so it's fine.
It's in there. That's Cape Fear from 1962 and Cape Fear from 1991. Give them both a watch. They're both excellent. Good. This is what we should have called this initial category. Like, it's the apologies, basically. It's the should have gone in the main list category, essentially. Because speaking of another movie I absolutely love, next on your list, Bradley, give us this one.
It's of course Marcy May Marlene from 2011.
What's going on?
She's here now. She seems okay.
What'd she say?
She had some boyfriend. They were living in the Catskills.
Is this Martha? Martha. You look like a Marcy May.
We've got a really nice place here.
It's as much yours as it is mine.
Where are we? Connecticut? Well, how far are we? From what? Yesterday.
You mean from where I picked you up? About 3 hours. Why?
Do you ever have that feeling where you can't tell if something's a memory or if it's something you dreamed?
Directed by Sean Durkin and starring Elizabeth Olsen, in which a former sort of cult member they're sort of like trying to deprogram her away from her learned behaviours.
Yeah.
And forever, Sean Durkin was a one and doneer. He just did this, and it was like a massive travesty. He's now done other things. He did The Nest, I think, didn't he?
Yes.
Jude Law and Carrie Coon. And he's been doing some TV stuff. I think he was involved in The Dead Ringers, the Rachel Weisz version. So he's now back in the fore, but for the longest time, for like 10 years, I was like, this is the biggest travesty that this man has never done anything else. Because this film is remarkable. Are you a big fan, Michael?
I love it. As you can imagine, this is very much my shit. It's like bubbling sort of dread throughout, right? And a little bit like Mandy and so many of these movies, there are cult connections. There is a Manson-y kind of vibe, right, to this cult of people that invade a family's home. But it's all about kind of what happens after a cult, right? And being sort of deprogrammed and the trauma that comes from that. And it's remarkable. Elizabeth Olsen, I think this might have been the first time I saw Elizabeth Olsen in something as well. I remember this was sort of the first time I really properly discovered her as an incredible actress. And she's remarkable in this as this woman with these different identities throughout different sections of her life, hence the title, Marcy May Marlene. It's great. It's like it's not got a lot of like big visceral home invasion horror in the way that something like Mandy or Dead Man's Shoes does, but it's quietly menacing and very, very tense, isn't it? It's great stuff.
Yeah, super effective.
Really good. So there you go. That's Marcy May Marlene, which you can buy or rent. All right. And what's next?
So the final, we've kind of done like 5 per section. So the final one, you kind of picked this one. I wouldn't have picked it, but it's fine.
Yeah, I sort of did because a lot of people love this film. I mean, I don't, but yeah. Anyway, carry on.
Knock Knock, who's there? It's Eli Roth with Knock Knock from 2015.
I'm sorry to bother you, sir, but my phone got wet and she left hers at her house.
Oh, I'm sorry. But if you want, you can come in and use my phone.
You.
You're a lifesaver. Not everyone would let strangers into their houses.
You don't look that dangerous.
I'm not so sure.
Could we maybe throw our clothes in your dryer just for like 10 minutes?
Sure.
How long have you and your wife been together?
14 years.
Being with one person your whole life is going against nature.
Well, when you love someone.
Come on, Evan. Buckle your seatbelts. We may be encountering some turbulence.
Guys, I have your clothes. They're pretty much dry.
Surprise!
Starring obviously Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas. I think that's the first time you're talking about Elizabeth Olsen. It's the first time I think I saw Ana de Armas in anything. Was in this morality play in which Keanu Reeves kind of invites 2 young ladies in, and he's open to, you know what he's after, but is he after it? And, he's then sort of punished for his for being a horn dog.
Indeed. Now, Eli Roth, he's now, he's
back in the
as
conversation.
Of last week, my new favourite filmmaker. I won't hear a word said against him. But this was a movie I did not love on first watch, but it really has been... It's been kind of reclaimed, I guess, is the word. Like, I've heard a lot of people really praise this movie as being kind of a subversive, sort of feminist horror movie.
Sure.
Now, whether or not Eli Roth set out to make a subversive feminist horror movie, or whether he was like, let's make a film about these two evil women torturing this nice man who didn't deserve it, is open to debate. I think
the casting of Keanu Reeves pretty much plays the hand of which one he was going with. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah,
this is like the "I spit on your grave" argument, right? This is people, and I think that's brilliant that people can sort of take media that definitely wasn't intended to be the way it was and repurpose it. That's great, and more power to those people that choose to do so. But man, this film fucking stinks. It's so bad.
Yeah, not a fan. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it since 2015. I didn't love it when I first saw it at the cinema. I thought it was, I found it quite annoying and irritating, and I wasn't a fan. But, I have heard so many people praise it. I feel like maybe one day I should give it another go, even though I sort of... I feel like I know what Eli Roth was going for with this movie.
I think I definitely know what he was going for. Bless him.
But a lot of fans of that movie, including our friend Becky Dark, it's one of her absolute faves as well. Sure. So there you go. That's Knock Knock, which you can buy or rent. Now, there are a few other movies worth mentioning, right, Brad, in this category?
Yeah, so we've kind of made also-rans of also-rans, because that's the way it goes, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to rattle off some titles. Maybe I'll add a bit of colour to some of them, but some of them I'm just going to say the names. And then people won't moan at me when I didn't mention them.
Yeah.
So Frank Darabont's Buried Alive, the Sharon Stone sexy... Is it Sharon Stone? Slither?
Yes.
With the cameras in the apartment.
Indeed. Sliver. Yes.
Devil Times 5, Curfew, another Elizabeth Olsen, Silent House, the one-take film that was originally Spanish and then remade.
I wanted to like that film more than I did. I didn't actually like it that much, but
that's why it's where it is. The Maddening with Burt Reynolds, where he's wearing a horrible toupee. Wonderful, stupid, camp, mid-90s nonsense.
Incredible.
Obviously, Vacancy with one of the Wilsons, and they go and there's cameras behind the mirrors and everyone's trying to kill them.
Yes.
Another big banger that we didn't mention, Blue Ruin from 2013.
What a film. What's his name? What's that director called? Jeremy Saulnier. Is it Jeremy
Saulnier? And it's starring Macon Blair.
Yeah. So
great
good,
film.
So good.
Good tale of revenge, that. Death and the Maiden, which is a Polanski, so we'll just quickly swoop past that.
There's always that, isn't there, every series?
There's always a Polanski.
Better mention the Polanski, yeah.
Yeah. The Paperboy, which is another great sort of pulpy 90s thriller about a paperboy becomes obsessed with a woman next door. It's great stuff. A couple of newer iterations, The Owners and Good Neighbours, a couple of newer films that are sort of home invasion-y.
Yep.
Till Death with... old Megan Fox, when she's chained to her husband who's dead. Yes. The sort of taken on a new lease of life, Right at Your Door from 2006, the Dirty Bomb Los Angeles one, which is now post-pandemic sort of taken on a different layer of weirdness.
Nice.
And finally, the film that I love more than anything in the world is a film called Nothing But Trouble, in which Chevy Chase is arrested for running a red light and is taken to a judge's house, and the house turns out to be this kind of house of horrors run by John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. I think he's in it as well. It's a wonderful 90s silliness.
Oh, nice. I've not seen that.
Big fan of it.
That sounds good.
Oh, you should watch it. It's great.
Oh my God.
Love it.
Love that. There you go. Well, we'll add all of these to the Letterboxd list as well, so people can check out all those titles we just rattled through. Sure. All right, so that's it for the kind of big main grand design section of the home invasion list. What's the next category, Brad?
The next category is called Home Improvement, in which something or someone adds themselves to the familial equation.
Yes. So somebody is initially maybe welcomed into the home, but then actually, so it's a kind of sneaky home invasion, right? In a kind of hand that rocks the cradle, kind of mad obsessive enters the home, right? And causes sinister shit to happen. Love this. This is a big favourite of mine in terms of these categories. What's first on your list?
The Killing of a Sacred Deer from 2017, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos.
Oh.
We don't have to worry about nothing, 'cause we got the fire And we're burning one hell of a something. They're gonna see us from outer space.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about Bod.
It's nothing serious.
No, it is.
Like we're the stars of the human race. Human race.
Where did you two go?
When the lights started out, they don't know what they heard. Strike the match, play it loud, giving love to the world.
How did his father die?
We'll be raising
A surgeon never kills a patient. An anesthesiologist can kill a patient, but a surgeon never can.
'cause we got the fire.
Don't be scared, Mom. You'll see. You won't be able to move either. So get used to
Let
it.
it burn, burn, burn.
Where is she? What did you do to her?
Let it burn, 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 burn. We're gonna let it burn, burn, burn.
I don't understand why I should have to pay the price. Why my children should have to pay the price.
Let it burn, 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 burn. We're gonna
It's the only thing I can think of as close to justice.
We can light it up, up. So they can put it out, out, out.
Now, Michael, I know you're a big fan of awkwardness.
God, I love it so much.
Awkwardness in cinema.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time watching Killing of a Sacred Deer being like, why are they talking like that? Like, no one actually speaks like this.
No.
Why is it everything so awkward? But my God, what an absolute banging picture. And really a film that put Barry Keogh, who's gone from strength to strength in terms of worming his way into people's houses and ruin their lives, has, it's such a great, performances all around from him and from Colin Farrell and from Nicole Kidman.
Incredible.
What a picture.
Absolutely incredible. And it's got that Yorgos Lanthimos tone, which is, like you say, awkward, weird. Why are people talking like this? Kind of stilted, very similar to The Lobster. It's filmed really weird. The way that Yorgos Lanthimos makes everything look a bit like a kind of weird fisheye lens kind of skateboard video or something. But there is really dark stuff going on in this as well. And it's maybe arguably the closest thing to... Well, I haven't seen Poor Things yet, to be fair, but I would say maybe this is the closest thing to out-and-out horror that he's made as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't enjoy a plate of spaghetti the same way anymore, unfortunately.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Because of what goes on in that film. But yeah, it's... Yorgos has never made a bad film, and he will continue, I'm sure, with Poor Things, which unfortunately neither of us have seen yet.
Very excited.
It's Frankenstein-y.
I can't wait. And I'll do a little plug, but over on Patreon over the next few weeks, we're going to do a little Yorgos Lanthimos mini-season. We're going to do a little retrospective. So I'll be covering everything from Dogtooth to The Alps to Killing of a Sacred Deer, The Lobster, The Favourite, and then finishing with Poor Things. So we're going to do a little deep dive exploration into the weird and wonderful world of Yorgos Lanthimos. I cannot wait. So there you go. That's The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which you can buy or rent. And actually, maybe we should just mention now, before we go on to our proper next choice, because I don't think we've put it on another list. Maybe we should quickly mention Saltburn as well while we're talking about... Is it on this list? Is it on this list?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's right at the bottom.
Fine. Well, maybe I'll just mention it now quickly, which is because while we're talking about Barry Keoghan, like you say, kind of infiltrating a family's home, check out Saltburn in the cinema, right? It's good fun. What did you think of Saltburn?
I really liked it. Obviously, we're getting Emerald Fennell has now found herself in the middle of a culture war. That perhaps she started, perhaps she didn't, but there's a conversations are being had about the validity of the narrative. But I had a great time with it. I really enjoyed it. Very obvious where it's going, and I think it's quite fun.
Yeah.
But it's a fun ride to go along and watch as someone kind of infiltrates this terribly posh family. Ghastly.
Oh my God. It is a beautiful looking... So obviously this is the director of A Promising Young Woman, and it's got those kind of gorgeous visual kind of flourishes, right? Amazing soundtrack, as Promising Young Woman did. But yeah, this really fun Eat the Rich story with this hideously rich family played by Rosamund Pike. Absolutely incredible, right? So good.
The best I've ever seen her.
Yeah.
I know she's great in Gone Girl, but she is so good in Saltburn.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Everyone in it is amazing. And as you know, as we mentioned with Killing of a Sacred Deer, Barry Keoghan is just he can do no wrong at the moment, really, can he?
Unbelievable actor. Brilliant. And he's going to be the Joker, isn't he?
Yeah. He recently said in an interview, I don't know if you saw this tweeted, that he had to list his 4 favourite films, and 3 of them were the Chris Nolan Batman trilogy.
Yeah, the Nolan stuff.
I was like, are you just contractually obliged to say you love the Batman movies? Because
I've got a feeling he just wanted that conversation to be over as quick as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, Barry, I could name 4 films that you're in that are better than those 3 Batman films. But anyway, so there you go. So that's Killing of a Sacred Deer, which you can buy or rent, and Saltburn, which is in cinemas now. All right, what's next?
Of course, we'd be remiss without talking about the genre titan that is Darren Little Bousman and his 2010 Mother's Day, starring Rebecca De Mornay.
Hello, Mother.
Please, get up. Make yourselves comfortable. I'm so sorry. I don't want you lying there on the floor. Go sit down on the sofas. Now, you fail to cooperate with anything, there will be consequences. You see, rules are what make order out of chaos. We must follow the rules. She always is impulsive.
I've not seen this version of Mother's Day. How is it?
So I think you think I was talking about the 1981 version, right?
I was. Yeah. I did think you were talking about that version, yeah.
I would say, once again, much like the Cape Fear thing, they both kind of work, but Mother's Day remake works better because this is pure home invasion in terms of a family has moved into their former house where this woman was like gathering kids like Pokemon and making them do fucked up shit. They then escape from prison and go back to the house to find that Mother's no longer there. Mm-hmm. Who is there is Frank Grillo, and he's having a house party. Bad time to be at that house party because what we're getting here is, bearing in mind it's Darren Lynn Bousman, and it's 2010. You know that you're going to get hyper violent gore, disgusting, awkward,
with a bit of new metal lighting.
Ghastly, horrible shit. And that's exactly what you get in the reboot of Mother's Day, but with a really good, interesting central performance by Rebecca De Mornay, obviously, who's famous for these sort of films, really.
Absolutely, she is. Yeah, love that. Yeah. There you go. So that's Mother's Day from 2010, which you can stream on ITVX. That's weird. And also the Studio Canal streaming service as well. So there you go. Mm-hmm. All right, what's next?
Now, this is a big banger. I'm a big fan of this film. I will say that, unfortunately, in 1977, Julie Christie was carrying the demon seed.
In the privacy of a woman's room, against her will, the inconceivable act. Julie Christie carries the demon seed.
What a fucking obtuse little picture this is. Directed by Donald Cammell, and super ahead of its time. There is a sentient sort of AI operating in this house.
Yeah.
But in the 70s.
This is about inviting a robot into your house, essentially, right? It's like technology. An evil Alexa, essentially. Turned on everyone's Alexas now by saying that. But yeah, it's a great little film, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an organic supercomputer with artificial intelligence, becomes obsessed with the creator's wife, and he's like, I think you and me, babe, would make a great couple. Mm-hmm. So she is then kind of like literally trapped within her own home because it controls all the doors and the windows, so she can't leave.
So good.
And this poor computer, this computer is like, come on, babe, let's have a baby. Come on.
Yeah. Come on now.
Come on. It's the next logical step. I've locked you in. You're gonna fall in love with me, so and it's honestly, it's such an interesting film. It's super ahead of its time, and just a really competently, stylishly made thriller that was made in the advent before GDPR and all that sort of stuff was a thing.
It's true. It's a really fun, weird little film, and I went on the Journey Through Sci-Fi podcast when they did their AI season, and we talked about this movie in depth, so you can check out a big long conversation about that film there. But it's a really, really fun film. Like you said, it's quite ahead of its time as well. So there you go. So that's Demon Seed from 1977, which you can stream on Plex. I don't know what Plex is.
Plex? There
you go.
You know what Plex is, surely.
Do I? I don't know.
It's like an ad thing. People use it to put all their illegally downloaded films on one server. But Plex itself has lots of films, but you just have to sit through like 7 hours of ads to
Fine,
get through the
a
film.
bit like Freevee, like one of those types of things.
Exactly like Freevee, yeah.
Fine. Excellent. All right, there you go. What's next?
I mean, this is another big banger, and one I think, although the home invasion style of it is a different type, is of course 1 Hour Photo from 2002, directed by Mark Romanek.
I've been doing mini lab work for over 20 years now. I consider it an important job.
Hi, Mrs. Yorkin. Can I get that address again?
Yes, it's
326 Serrano Terrace.
Famous for being the scary Robin Williams movie, right?
I mean, he is remarkably great as Cy the photo guy.
Yeah.
In which this, this sort of schlubby, sad sack sort of photo mart operator sort of becomes obsessed with this family and the kind of perfect life that he perceives them to have. He then kind of sort of, through kindness sort of invades into their space somewhat, but then he gets a peek behind the curtain and realizes that not everything's so rosy, and he takes it upon himself really to kind of correct the wrongdoings in this perfect family's veneer. And it is one of the reasons why I don't make idle chit chat with anyone, really, if I can help it.
This is, again, it's one of those classic, it's like the speak no evil thing, isn't it? It's like stop being so polite to people you don't know, right?
Just develop my photos. I don't need you to know my son's name. Or where I live. I'm not having any of this.
It's a great idea. It must be something somewhat dated now. For the kids out there listening, you used to have to take your photos to Boots or a place like that and get them developed by somebody else. So it's true that there would always be some random stranger that would have access to all of your photos that you took on a camera, right? Which in itself is quite a weird thing. I bet those people that work in those places must have seen some stuff, probably.
100%. Can you imagine? I couldn't imagine someone going through my camera roll now.
Right, exactly.
I'd be done. Yeah. That'd be it for me.
It'd be done. Yeah.
Game over.
So yeah, it's a fun idea that's quite of its time at this point, but it is remarkable. It's a really tense movie, and it's worth watching, if anything, just for that Robin Williams performance, isn't it? I think
it's quite strikingly shot as well. I think it's got really interesting visuals. Mark Romanek is he's kind of came from a music video background. It's one of those ones you can always tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always.
You can always tell. He's still doing stuff with Beyonce and stuff now, so you can always tell when a music director's started making films.
Nice, yeah.
But yeah, good film.
Very good film. That's 1 Hour Photo from 2002, which you can stream on Disney Plus. Lovely. All right, sure. What's the last main recommendation in our home improvement section?
I mean, I'd be remiss without mentioning The Stepfather from 1987 by Joseph Ruben.
Oh yeah, what a picture.
So what do you think? Can we give this little guy a home?
Sure.
That's my girl.
He's a wonderful man, and he wants to care for us.
I don't know. There's just something about him.
Oh, that guy in Bellevue that killed his whole family. Cut him up with knives. Maybe they disappointed him.
All we need is a lawyer around here.
You're a good boy. He's a good boy. Isn't he a good boy? Your daddy's little angel.
Once again remade in the late 2000s. I think
Dylan Walsh is the stepfather in that one. Yeah,
but we don't talk about that. We talk about the original stepfather, the OG stepfather, and that is of course Terry O'Quinn.
Yeah,
who is a seemingly mild-mannered man, and he's just murdered his own family. And he's almost like the reverse Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of moves from town to town and finds a woman who's always got a couple of kids, and he seduces them and then sort of worms his way into the familial unit. And as soon as there's a slight crack, much like 1 Hour Photo, he goes off the fucking deep end and goes on yet another killing spree. This spawned 2 sequels as well.
Yeah.
Which they all three of the Stepfather films are good. Even the diminishing sequels, they're all still really solid films.
Amazing. Yeah, really fun. Terry O'Quinn is just brilliant in this as well. So good.
He's so good. He's the guy from Lost, isn't he?
He is. John Locke from Lost. Yeah.
I thought I'd mention that because I know it makes you happy.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
There you go. That's The Stepfather from 1987. Great movie for which you can buy or rent or stream online. All right. What else have we got before we move on to this next section?
We'll just do another little rattle off here. So, of course, it would be remiss without mentioning I Came By, the more recent Babak Anvari movie.
Yes, of course. This is the accidentally invading Hugh Bonneville's home and finding out that he's a wrong 'un. It's that one, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't go around killing people.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. Also, another big one. I wish I had space for it in the top 5. Hider in the House with Gary Busey from the mid-90s.
Ooh, nice. I haven't seen this.
Oh, it's just peak Busey being weird, and he literally is in the house, like he's in the walls, and he's like all up in the attic and stuff. Great stuff. Death Game is another film. I See You, which was from like 2019. I think Helen Hunt was in it.
Yes.
And like the frog thing, and it like the first like 45 minutes of it are great, and then it gets shit. Crawl Space from the 80s. Lucky, which is a newer film.
Yeah.
I can't remember who's in it. Sarah Paulson.
Right. Yeah. That was only about a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I might have even mentioned it on Fresh Blood, I think. But yes,
sure. I imagine we probably did.
Yeah.
A big one for me, of course, is Burning Bright, in which a woman is home invaded. But at the same time, there's also a tornado and a tiger loose in her house.
Love it.
Great film.
Love it.
Great film. See For Me, which is a film where a woman uses an app and then she's getting home invaded, and the woman on the app is her eyes because she's blind.
Yes.
There's Hider in My House, which is a new Paramount Plus, I'm guessing, reboot of this. I didn't watch it because it looks shit. A few other big bangers, though. The Loved Ones.
What a film.
That's definitely home invasion. Well, reverse home invasion.
Yeah, kind of abduction, kind of.
You're stuck in the house.
Yeah.
Great Aussie horror comedy there. Perry Benson's Mum and Dad from 2008 was a proper grim and grimy film that I love and not enough people have seen. But Mum and Dad, not to be confused with the Nick Cage one.
Yes.
Mum and Dad.
Yeah.
And then Unlawful Entry. Freehold, which is that man in Javier Botet.
That's a good one. Javier Botet is hiding in the walls of an estate agent's flat and he doesn't know about it, right? It's almost like a Parasite-esque story where he's kind of eating his food and living off him unaware.
Subsisting off him unaware, and he's like this weird, like gangly monster creature.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. There you go. Great films there on that little section. Hello, everybody. Just interrupting this week's episode momentarily to plug something exciting we've got coming up this weekend. If you're listening to this on the day it dropped, then you might be interested in joining me for a special podcasting masterclass that I'm going to be hosting on Sunday, the 10th of December online. It's going to be virtual, so literally anyone in the world can tune in and join. If you buy yourself a ticket, you'll get sent a special Zoom link and you can join me in a Zoom call where I will be sharing my tips and advice for how to create a successful independent podcast. This podcast was started entirely by me, by myself, no production company, no sponsorship, nothing, no funding. It was just me in my bedroom with a microphone and some amazing guests that I was able to rope in. It's now my full-time job. It now pays my salary, and this is all I do. I get to watch and discuss horror films every day for a living, which is pretty cool. So if you're interested in doing something similar and delving into the world of podcasting, then I will be sharing some special tips, some advice, some technical advice. I'll be giving you a behind-the-scenes look of how a typical podcast episode for EOH is made and edited, and I will also be answering questions for people as well and kind of engaging in conversation with everyone who comes along to join the masterclass. So if you're interested in that, please do come along. It won't be recorded and repeated. This will just be a live event, so you've got to come along on the night. It's Sunday, the 10th of December at 7 p.m. UK time. And if you want to grab a ticket for that, head to evolutionofhorror.com/events.
I am Bella Baxter. I'm a flawed, experimenting person. I seek outings and adventures. Bella's so much to discover.
You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
I am finding being alive fascinating.
Bella.
Why I keep it in my mouth if it is revolting? I must go punch that baby.
That little clip you heard just there was from the new Yorgos Lanthimos movie, Poor Things. Very excitingly, that is coming to UK cinemas finally in a few weeks' time at the beginning of January. And in anticipation of that, we have decided on our next Patreon mini-season for $10 donors. Over the next few weeks, across Christmas and New Year and into January, I am going to be hosting a Yorgos Lanthimos retrospective. Yorgos Lanthimos is, for my money, one of the best directors working today. He does these strange, weird and wonderful, hilarious, creepy, dark, biting, horror-adjacent movies, and we're going to be going through and discussing them in depth, from Dogtooth to The Favourite to The Lobster to The Killing of a Sacred Deer, and finishing with an in-depth discussion of Poor Things when it's released. Cannot wait, and I've got some awesome guests joining me along the way. So that is one of the many, many things that we are going to be hosting over on Patreon over the next few weeks. We've also got a Fresh Blood special coming in January where Brad, Becky, Stevie Webb and I will be counting down our top movies of 2023. So there's loads of fun content coming up over the festive season. So if you want to get involved and listen to bonus episodes, particularly while we're on hiatus, the main series is going to be finishing soon, but Patreon will continue every single week. Patreon.com/evolution of horror. $10 per month will get you access to all of the bonus mini-seasons, retrospectives. You'll get a new episode every single week. $5 per month will get you access to our monthly Fresh Blood episodes and more. But everybody who signs up, no matter what tier, will also get a special shout out on the podcast as a thank you. So speaking of, I'm going to give everybody who signed up in the month of November a little thanks. So a big thank you to Kurt Reese, Claire Louise, Pat Leyland, Noah Keppen, Lorraine Hinkle, Stacey May Fowles, Jack Robertson, Sterling Hanson, Sebastian Leroy, Nicola Upton, Joan Ruser, Michael G, Wyatt, Samantha Williams, Darren Matthews, Elo, Lars Anderson, Jade Yakoski, Matthew Evans, Levi Douglas, Daniel Hallett, Probably My Jugs, Lauren Gillen, Nick Wall, Dennett Smith, Nate Kidd, Elizabeth Wagner, Laura Buchalter, Caitlin Ellis, Jack, Shane Dubois, Chloe Katz, Mark Collins, Greta Hagen Richardson, Makala Kidd, Julia Mason, Alex Brownie, Jimmy, Robert John Williams, Alan McKee, Steve 281 and Matthew Drummond. A huge thank you to all of those people who signed up as new patrons in the month of November. And one more time, if you want to join them and get treated to regular bonus content and more, then sign up now. Patreon.com/evolution of horror. That's patreon.com/evolution of horror. Okay, let's return to the second half of this week's episode as Brad Hanson and I continue our list of home invasion also-rans. Okay, so Brad, we've done our first two categories. First of all, grand designs, you named it, right? Which was kind of classic, people plan on invading the home. Then we did a section called home improvement, right? Which is people kind of being invited into the home and then fucking it up from within. What's next?
Of course, I don't know if you're noticing the TV show theme, but this section is called Home and Away. And this is, of course, foreign language home invasion movies.
Indeed, which, you know, fair enough. As always, often we are criticised on this podcast for favouring Western movies and English language movies, which I will absolutely hold my hands up to and admit. So let's recommend some interesting international home invasion movies. What have you got?
It would be my absolute pleasure, because every one of these absolutely fucking slaps.
Yeah.
We're going to kick off with 2010's Dream Home, directed by Pang Ho Chung and starring Josie Ho.
Ever since she was a little girl, she dreamed of living at the top of the world. But after a lifetime of working her way in, the elite residents will do anything to keep her out.
The woman will go to whatever lengths necessary to obtain her dream home with a view of the sea. That includes killing everyone in the building to drive down the property prices.
Yes. It's good. It's good.
Wonderful fucking picture. Like, I only came to this quite recently, beginning of the year, actually. I think this EOH kind of when I was like branching out into what we could cover for this episode, this was one of the first films I was like, oh, I actually watched it the day you launched the series.
Did you? I love that. Amazing. Incredible.
There you go. Who knew?
Yeah. Sorry.
Great film, though.
It's so film. Good. So good. Yeah, that's Dream Home from 2010. Nowhere. Now, where you've put Nowhere, does that mean you just can't stream it anywhere?
You can't even rent and buy it.
Sad. Okay, so you've got to get the physical media of this one.
Yeah, there's like, if there's a DVD or Blu-ray, that is literally the only way you can get it. It's not available on even like Amazon or Rakuten or any of that shit. Like,
okay.
Yeah, unfortunately.
One of those. All right. Okay, go for it. What's next on our list?
Going a year in advance, 2011, of course, Sleep Tight.
Pero que lo ha dicho el médico, joder. ¿O él tampoco le crees?
¿Sabes por qué te lo cuento? Porque quiero que sepas de lo que soy capaz.
Directed by John Bagliero of the Wreck series, and he also made that terrible film The Darkness with Anna Paquin. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I never saw that, but I remember it. Yes. Yeah.
Stinky. Cesar, an unhappy concierge, maintains a peculiar relationship with the very diverse inhabitants of the upper-class apartment building he works at in Barcelona, because he's in the walls and swinging around the houses, and he can have access to everyone's properties. Once again, a really strong, great home invasion thriller, but with a Spanish, twist. It's quite interesting, quite fun, quite playful.
Yeah. It's really good. It's good. I remember enjoying this one. It's that kind of thing where you're aligned with the home invader more than with the victim of it, right? And so it kind of puts you in quite an uncomfortable place where you're sort of watching this man sneak into this woman's flat and hide under the bed, and all of that kind of thing. It's good. It's kind of Hitchcockian and creepy. I was a big fan of this one. It's great.
Speaking of big fans,
speaking of big fans, what's next?
It's Cachet from 2005, directed by, of course, Michael Haneke.
Depuis plusieurs jours, on reçoit des paquets, des coups de fil anonymes.
Qui était l'appareil?
Comment j'ai fait pour pas le voir? Ce type, c'est un mystère. Et là, vous ne savez pas qui filme ça et comment?
Raconte-moi plutôt comment tu vas.
Bien, je vais bien.
Quand je t'entends parler, je me fais du souci pour toi.
Ma secrétaire a déposé une cassette sur mon bureau. Alors, la cassette vous montre, lors d'une conversation privée, une sorte de studio. Ce type veut ruiner votre carrière.
Je sais, j'ai été idiot de te mentir. Excuse-moi, je t'en prie.
C'est peut-être un de tes fans.
Now, originally, me and Adam Robinson had this paired with Funny Games, and we were going to discuss Cachet with it. But we had so much to say on Funny Games that it ended up just being a 2-hour discussion on Funny Games. So we ended up missing this one, sadly. But what a film, right?
An unbelievable film in which a married couple is terrorised by a series of videotapes planted on their front porch. So in this one, we're not even really invading the home. We're just invading the psychological thought opinions of home, because someone is literally on their doorstep just dropping these horrible. I mean, it's such an analog thing as well for the youngsters once again to be like the videotape.
Yeah,
planted on the doorstep.
It's kind of similar setup to Lost Highway, isn't it? Like that camera, moving in on the house, somebody watching you, kind of thing. It's good stuff, and like compared to Funny Games, this is much more low-key, kind of sinister home invasion, isn't it, in that way?
It's that bubbling tension that sort of permeates. And the two leads, Danielle Auteuil and Juliette Binoche.
Yes.
Or Binochet, as I call her. Are wonderful, great performances from them. And yeah, Michael Haneke, as everyone knows who Michael Haneke is such a clinician. It's so cold and calculated in the things that he does and the reasons why he does things. And Cachet, or Hidden as it's known in the UK, is a perfect example of like this taut, bare bones thriller. It's great, so good.
And it bubbles with dread, and then there is a moment of sudden violence like towards the end, which is genuinely shocking as well. It's really great, really great stuff. Love it. So that's Cachet, or Hidden, from 2005, which you can stream in the UK on the BFI player. There you go. All right, what's next?
It's one that you've been spiritually tethered with inadvertently this year. It is hit the music. It is, of course, Dor from 1988, directed by bandmate Takashi.
はいどちら様
奥様でいらっしゃいますか。お昼前のお忙しい時に恐縮でございます。本日は本田様に耳寄りなお話でお伺いしました。
Wonderful. Weird and wonderful film. We talked about this on Fresh Blood a month ago, because even though it's from way back in 1988, this has only just got its release in the UK. It's only just been kind of discovered by the UK. It was premiered at Grimfest a couple of months ago. We were lucky enough to host the screening of that. And now you can pick up a physical media copy of it, can't you? But yeah, what did you think of Dor Brad? It's a kind of weird and wonderful little film, isn't it?
I absolutely fucking love this film. So basically it's like this housewife, and she's kind of got, let's be honest, she's a bit skittish to begin with, but a traveling salesman comes to her door and is trying to sell insurance policies, and I'm like, girl, I know that feeling. Her husband's not around, so she panics and she slams the door on his hand. Now this gentleman does not take that the way that you would, which is to go to the hospital and get it treated. He decides that he's then going to torment her within her own home for the next 70 minutes. And the film kind of bubbles away until it kind of crescendos into this last 25 minutes of absolute mania.
Carnage. Yeah, it's incredible.
It's so good. And it's like a top-down shot. It's one of the most remarkable shots. It was always doing the rounds on Twitter, like, look at this shot, how good it is. But it basically like traverses from like top-down view the house as they chase, as she's pursued throughout the house. And it is an unbelievable sequence that I love so much. And it spawned a couple of sequels. I think on the new Blu-ray you can get Dor 2 is included in it. There's also Dor 3 apparently. They're just a wonderfully weird series in which a sort of fuddy housewife is pursued by a psychosexual pervert. It's great.
It's great. It's so good. And it really taps into that. It's a different kind of home invasion theme that we haven't seen previously, which is that kind of anxiety of like, who's knocking at my door? And even if it's somebody kind of seemingly mundane, like a traveling salesman or a Jehovah's Witness or whatever it might be, those people that will come to your door in the middle of the day, you're like, oh, who are these people really? You know, it's great stuff.
Yeah, only takes one thing to flip the switch, and then, you know, you've got a problem on your hands.
Yeah. Exactly. You've got to be polite to these people. Don't slam the door on them, whatever you do. So there you go. So that's Dor from 1988, and you can pick up the Blu-ray physical media of that this month. All right, what's next in this category?
Finishing up the main section of the Home and Aways, I'd be remiss without mentioning Visitor Q by Takeshi Miike from 2001.
なかなかわかりませんでした。でも今やっとわかりました。それは怒りでもありませんでした。悲しみでもありませんでした。
Oh, yeah. This is a fun, weird little film, isn't it?
Fun, maybe not the word I'd be going for, Michael. The first time I watched this film, it cock-blocked me.
Oh, wow. Really?
So I was watching it in bed with my girlfriend at the time. And, you know, it's back in the old days when you used to be like, should we have a bit of, you know, after this?
Yeah.
And we sat down and we watched this and it finished. And I went, probably not actually after that.
Maybe we're just going to sleep.
Probably think about that. So I mean, this film it's Takeshi Miike, so you know it's going to be weird. But basically it's a dysfunctional family where the mother is a heroin addict and prostitute, and the son's getting beaten and bullied. Father is an ex-TV reporter but is sleeping with his own daughter. And then this stranger comes in and kind of like tries to fix the family's lives. And in sometimes the best way to sort of fix your problems is just lean into them.
Yeah.
And be weirder with them.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And it is like, but it's been a long time since I've seen it, but isn't it sort of played like a comedy, like a really dark comedy, this film, in that kind of awkward way? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It is played for laughs.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop you being like, that woman, why is the son laying on the floor while the mum wears a bin bag dress where she milks her tits and he's laying in the milk of her boobs.
Yeah, it's pretty grim.
That's not funny.
No, it's a comedy in the way that movies like Happiness or The Coffee Table are comedies.
Comedies. Yeah, look how fucked up this is. Isn't it funny?
Yes, indeed. But worth a watch, especially if you love a bit of mad, Takashi Miike, Japanese cinema. It's absolutely worth a watch. Dan Martin earlier on in this season cited it as his favourite home invasion film as well, of course. It's great stuff. So there you go. So that's Visitor Q, which sadly you can't stream anywhere, but you can pick up a physical media copy of that one. All right. Any other titles you want to rattle off in our international home invasion section?
Of course. So another Michael Haneke in The Seventh Continent, in which a family basically just destroy their own lives from the inside out. But
he loves a bit of this, Michael Haneke, doesn't he?
Sure does. Loves it. Unhappiness starts at home as far as Michael's concerned.
Yeah.
There was a more recent film directed by Tommy Wirkola called The Trip, where husband and wife go away and they're kind of like reconnecting, but it turns into a massive fucking violent home invasion. It's super fun, really kinetic. A film I absolutely adore and I really want to mention it, was a film by Alexander Wardam called Borgman from 2013, in which an enigmatic vagrant cons himself into the home life of like an upper class family. It's once again another precursor to sort of Parasite, and in turn something like Visitor Q, where this person comes in and fucks with society. And Saltburn is another version. They're all the same sort of thing. There's Livid from 2011, which is a Bustillo and Maori joint. Also Pascal Lochier's Ghostland, or Incident in the Ghostland, or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Oh, of course. The movie that... Yes, this was his follow-up to Martyrs, wasn't it? Maybe?
One of the
follow-ups to Martyrs, Pascal Logier, and it's got all kinds of kind of quite nasty, grisly, slightly problematic stuff going on in that film, doesn't it, I think?
Sure does.
There you go. All right, so that is our home and away section. I love the names of these categories, Brad. What's the next one?
This one's called Homes Under the Hammer, and it's extreme home invasion.
Oh, here we go. We're getting into the evil, nasty shit now, right?
Buckle up, baby. This is what these five. My God, absolute disgusting.
Oh no! All right, what's first up?
Well, I mean, a big one, a big heavy hitter in the home invasion series. You'd be remiss without mentioning House on the Edge of the Park from 1980, directed by Ruggero Deodato and starring David Hess.
Oh God, I've had quite a few listeners email me and message to say, why haven't you covered this movie? You should cover this movie. It's great. And I'm just like, I don't know.
It's pretty rapey.
So tell us a bit about this one.
I mean, where do you begin? I mean, once again, a posh couple, rich couple, they've got car trouble. They visit a mechanic. The mechanic's like, yo, I can fix this. And then they're like, as a thank you, do you want to come to a party? Don't make idle chit chat with people. Because it turns out these two people are rapists and murderers of the worst degree.
Yeah.
And what we have here is 90 odd minutes of literally people being raped and then murdered and then raped and then murdered.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly challenging, tough, hard watch. But I do think there's some value there, and I think it is a precursor to a lot of the films we've already mentioned. This is the DNA of something like House on the Edge of the Park, which is where, much like Speak No Evil you were talking about, the people's politeness becomes their undoing.
Yeah, and there is, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but there's a class element to this too, right, as well. You know, this kind of like bourgeois-esque kind of family almost, Yeah.
Yeah, kill the proletariat. Like it's interesting in that regard, but it's if you're thinking of engaging with this, it's a tough watch, and you should any of these next five.
Yeah, assume that we're going to issue a trigger warning for all of them, right?
Yes, all of them, and the other ones I've got on there as well. They're all rough. Yeah. So just if you're going to engage with any of this, do it with the right mindset. It's going to be a tough watch at times.
I mean, David Hess. What is it about David Hess as well? Because obviously he starred as the home invading rapist in Last House on the Left as well, right?
So he's made an entire career out of Raping and killing. Fair play to him.
Terrifying. There you go. All right, that's House on the Edge of the Park, which you can rent and buy. Oh, God, what's next? Oh, God.
It's 2001's August Underground, directed by Fred Vogel.
It's a new low, man.
I've still not watched any of these films yet. I still haven't quite mustered up the enthusiasm to sit through them. I know that Zobo is a big fan of these films, right? What are your thoughts, Brad, on these?
They are extremely challenging movies to watch. This one's only a brief 70 minutes, so you can watch it on your lunch break if you fancy it. It spawned 2 sequels, Mordom and what the fuck was the third one called? Penance. There we go. Mordom, I would say, is the worst of the 3. The second one is the one that is...
worst as in the most extreme of the 3.
The evilest,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And these are like shot on VHS tapes of these bunch of degenerates, led by Fred Vogel as the lead actor, who break into families' homes, kidnap them, take them home, torture them, cut them open, throw up on them, necrophile them, chop off their penises, do all sorts of evil, depraved stuff. And they play like snuff films because of the quality of the video cameras used is literally like those old VHS tape, handheld ones. So there's an air of sort of authenticity, especially with the fact that the vomiting is real and there's some self-harm and scarification in it that's real as well. So there is the lines are blurred between what's real and what's not, and it makes for quite troubling, upsetting watching. And as you can imagine, available nowhere.
Fucking hell. I feel like at some point I should put myself through these movies, but when I'm not.
Well, we talked about them in depth, didn't we, on the
Extreme
Patreon
season? Well, I think we didn't do them in depth in the way that we did some of the others, right? I think they came as like an extra recommendation from you and Zoe, didn't they? When we did our Extreme season, we have talked about at some point going back and doing a follow-up Extreme season on Patreon, which we might still do at some point. So maybe that will be the time. I'll do Mordom or something, but yeah, for now, probably didn't warrant a whole episode on the main feed. So there you go. So that's August Underground.
You thought you got complaints with Home Alone, mate?
Yeah,
imagine what you're going to get with that.
That's August Underground, which you could you probably just have to find on the dark web, I imagine.
Yeah. Switch to incognito mode, you'll be fine.
Yeah. What's next?
Oh, speaking of fucking horrible fucking films, Jesus Christ. Trauma from 2017, directed by Lucio A. Rojas. Four friends visit rural locality of Chile and are brutally attacked by a man and his son. So this is kind of an allegory for sort of like the Chilean dictatorship, Pinochet, that sort of stuff. But this film is so bad. Like the first 15 minutes of this film, you were like it sets out its stall, and you're like, oh, we're not fucking around here. Then we're doing that, are we?
Yeah.
Did you see this?
No, I did not. This played at was it Soho Horror Festival?
It did. It played at Soho. Yeah.
I remember it was either you or our friend Steve last who described to me in depth what happens in that first 10 minutes, and I was like, oh my god, okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, at certain points, you and your son have got to get together and commit horrible acts and atrocities against lesbian communists just to show them who's boss. It's
sure.
It's so fucked up. And it's one that I'd be very happy to never watch again. But it's home invasion and it's nasty, so it's under the hammer section.
Love it. Well, there you go. So if you can stomach that's Trauma, which you have to find. You probably have you'll have to search it out. Yeah, that's Trauma from 2017. All right, what's next?
This film is from 2010. It's called Kidnapped, and it's by Miguel Angel Vivas.
Despídase a alguien, vieja.
No.
Perdone que le moleste tan tarde, pero me han llamado quejándose por los ruidos.
Siento mucho haber molestado a los vecinos.
I actually watched this one fairly recently because, again, Dan Martin recommended it to me, and he said the film isn't that good, but there's one standout sequence involving a split screen section that's worth watching purely for that sequence, basically, which I did think was quite impressive. Yeah.
It really surprised me, this film, because it doesn't fuck around. It's really brutal, barbaric, and bleak, and it's what's even weirder, on Amazon Prime, so that just anyone can watch it.
Yes.
There's basically 3 hooded Eastern European criminals burst into a home in Madrid's gated community. They hold a family hostage because they've kidnapped them and they want to make money. But what happens from there is some of the really gnarly fucking evil shit occurs. And it certainly, it could have fallen under Home and Away because it is a foreign language film, much like Trauma as well. But there's a certain level of barbarism in these films that I think warrant their own umbrella.
Their own section.
Their own umbrella of nastiness. But
yeah, you can't just go putting this in with like Dor from 1988.
They're different
right?
beasts. This stuff is the stuff where you're like, okay, but if I'm not going to watch anything, it's this stuff.
Yeah.
But Kidnapped is, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really, I like nasty shit, like mean-spirited nasty stuff, and this is certainly falls into that category.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. So that is Kidnapped from 2010. And finally, last but not least,
I've been putting this one off. That's why I put it at the end.
Well, yeah. And do you know what? This next movie, one of my previous guests, Alexandra Helen Nicholas, mentioned this as well as one of her, I think she said, most disturbing home invasion movies she's ever watched.
I had a fucking nightmare with this film. It's called Fight for Your Life from 1977, directed by Robert A. Endelson.
When faced with the terror of brutal killers, every cop, every man knows that surrender is impossible. You must fight for your life.
All right, no more killing. Throw the gun out the window, and then you come out. This is your last chance.
A story filled with unbelievable action, a movie of excruciating violence, a saga of extraordinary courage that will leave you cheering. Fight for your life. Experience it soon here.
A minister dispenses justice to 3 convicts who take his family hostage. This is one of the most racist films I've ever seen in my entire life. It plays whites versus blacks in the most base way possible, which makes for some truly uncomfortable viewing. It was rightfully banned as part of the video nasties in the 1980s. It has never seen the light of day in the UK. It is challenging to the nth degree in terms of how abhorrently hateful this film is.
And is it hateful as in, because that's sort of what it's about though, right?
Yes.
Like it's about racists targeting a black man's home,
Yes.
right?
It's a nasty piece of exploitation to the more in terms of the fact that I think in the 70s it would be like, oh, isn't this thrilling? But as time has gone on, you watch it now and it becomes even more uncomfortable and more difficult to stomach because of just how hateful the film is. And then you have to ask yourself what the motivation was, whether Endelson himself was trying to shine a light on racism and because of the beats that occur in the film, or was it simply to shock and titillate? And if it's the latter, then it's a problem. And I think a lot of the times people read it as the latter, which is
not good.
Why it's quite a tough film. It's one of the toughest films I've had to sit through.
Wow,
it was really hard work. I really didn't like.
Yeah,
I liked how much I didn't like it.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense. Like how much it had an effect on me. I think.
Okay.
It's tough to shock me these days, and that certainly shocked me.
Okay, you can always rely on the 1970s, can't you, for something?
Good
like
old
that.
1970s, just to
so there you go.
Ruin people's lives.
That is Fight for Your Life from 1977, which again, hard to find, right? That particular one, hard to find. All right, what else have you got to mention in this extreme section?
Yeah, just a couple I'm just going to breeze past. Don't Answer the Phone, which also got caught up in the video nasty scandal. Last House on Dead End Street. Also, Last House on the Beach. And of course,
There's a lot of last houses, aren't there?
And they all follow the same suit. They were all basically just copying each other and being like, "Oh, who can do the grossest shit?" And finally, California Axe Massacre, also known as Lisa, also known as Axe. It's had about fucking 50 titles, this film. But they're all sort of films that fall under this kind of like on the verge of extreme horror.
Yeah, well, there you go. I love this because then we're going to go... This just shows the broad scope of this home invasion season, because we move from the nastiest, most extreme shit imaginable into... What's our next category, Brad?
It's kids' home invasion, because... of course, Michael, a few months back, you made a decision that I stand by and I agree with, that you included a film called Home Alone. I don't know if anyone's heard of it.
Yes, little underground movie, you know.
Let's be honest, mate. You were met with some derision. You received some emails, some comments. You know, some people weren't really happy. So we thought the best thing to do is to talk about 5 more kids' films.
I'm ready. Honestly, I was tempted. I stand by my decision to include Home Alone to the point where I was ready to double down on it. And I think it's a good idea. It's fun. Let's throw in some kids' movie recommendations. Some of these are quite fun gateway horrors for listeners that have kids as well, right? So,
exactly. And what a palate cleanser from Fight for Your Life.
Yeah, exactly. We go from August Underground Mordom to this next movie. So what's first on your list, Brad?
Of course, it's Mouse Hunt from 1997, directed by Gore Verbinski.
The Smuntz brothers have inherited their father's old house.
Sorry, Pop. I'm sorry.
Fixing it up could bring them a fortune.
We can make 700,000-800,000 easy.
Smart.
Our future is staring us in the face, and all we have to do is grab it, baste it, and scarf it down.
There's just one small problem.
Hello.
Incredible. Do you know, I never knew that was Gore Verbinski. That's
mad,
funny.
Isn't it? But when you think about it, the aesthetics, the visual palette in Mouse Hunt, it makes sense.
Kind of does. Yeah. Love that.
This is a great film, though. Really fun. A sort of a stalwart of my childhood. You know, 2 buffoonery brothers, played by Nathan Lane and Lee Evans, inherit a house on a hill. And it turns out they're the home invaders to a cute little mouse who really doesn't appreciate their presence there. And, you know, there's certainly, you know, it's an old dark house on the hill. There's horror connections there, and itself is a pure horror film or a home invasion film, in the fact that these 2 sort of, you know, gentrifying bloodsuckers have come in, and it's up to our cute little mouse to wheel him out the door.
I love it. It's true. It's like kind of Tom and Jerry meets Home Invasion, isn't it? It's great stuff. Yeah. Love it. Good choice. That's Mouse Hunt from 1997, which you can stream on Paramount Plus. There you go. All right, what's next?
Another, I would say, a big one, and one that I think could have warranted in an episode itself, is Gil Keenan's 2006 CGI masterpiece, Monster House.
Every neighborhood has a house with a secret.
Awesome kite.
There's something going on at that house. This is why nobody will sit next to us at lunch. You'll see, no ghosts. Cantor, come back, please. Cantor, I'm serious.
Yeah. Oh, this is a great film. I agree with you. This could easily have made it onto the main list.
I think when we talk about gateway horrors, I think this is a great example of a gateway horror, and one that's got like so much charm and real love and craft put into it. And I thought it was great, and I think it's a really interesting take on the home invasion thing. These kids are like trying to get into the house, you know, and find out what's going on, the frightening secrets that are occurring in it. Directed by, obviously, I say Gil Keenan, who went on to make the Poltergeist remake. Whoopsie daisy. And he's doing the new Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. That's directed by Gil Keenan as well.
That film looks crap, doesn't it? That one, yeah.
Sure. But I think Monster House is a great sort of, as we say, gateway horror.
It's really fun. So this is actually a story where it's like the house itself is the living, breathing monster, right? It's good stuff. I like it. One of the films, actually, while I think of it, because we didn't put it on this list, is another one that people were mentioning they'd like to hear covered along these lines is Coraline as well. A kind of another interesting gateway horror movie, right? The kind of early Leica animation one where an adventurous 11-year-old girl finds another world that is strange, kind of another version of her house and family with kind of weird versions of her mum and her family, and it's all a bit creepy and uncanny and weird, isn't it? It's great stuff.
Yeah. Once again, I think these sort of films are great at forming young kids' minds and getting kids comfortable with difficult subject matters and sort of scary scenarios that are safe, and then you can bring them up to trauma. You do Coraline.
Then eventually they can move on to House on the Edge of the Park. It's perfect, right?
It's a natural progression.
There you go. So that's Monster House from 2006, which you can buy and rent, and also a little mention for Coraline there as well. All right, what's next on your list?
Well, I mean, you were met with such hatred for the Home Alone film. I thought we should do Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, and the subsequent 3 sequels that have followed it after that.
Wonderful.
I believe you. But my Tommy gun don't. Get down on your knees and tell me you love me.
On your knees? I love you.
You gotta do better than that.
I love you.
I'm gonna give you to the count of 3 to get your lousy, lying, low-down, 4-flushing carcass out my door. 1, 2, 3. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Now, I think I've only seen 2 and 3. I don't think I've seen anything beyond 3. What about you, Brad? Have you delved into the Home Alone sequels?
I mean, of course I have. There was even a new one that was done like very recent, Home Sweet Home Alone, like it was last year.
Yep.
It was terrible, and they're all the 3 and 4 are bad.
Yeah.
3 is where it really lost me, but I really want to focus on, especially of it being Christmassy as well right now. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. You talk about looking at true horror in cinema. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York has Donald Trump in it.
It has Donald Trump in it. I've heard that apparently on certain streaming platforms you can choose to watch it without the Donald Trump cameo now.
The Trump cut.
Kind of like how you could watch Cannibal Holocaust without the animal cruelty.
Yeah.
You can now watch Home Alone 2 without Trump.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Amazing.
And of course, Piers Morgan plays the pigeon woman.
Yeah.
As well. So, you've just got it all covered, really. Once again, there is a home invasion section, absolutely, where they've got that derelict house. Wow, what a hole.
So good. And it is... I love Home Alone 2 almost as much as the first one, and the violence in the final act is
obscene.
I mean, it's more extreme than the violence in the first one. It's brilliant. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, it is gnarly. Like they are dead like 10 times over each in the things that happen to them. Just launching bricks off a roof onto people's heads.
So funny as well. Daniel Stern is such a fucking funny physical actor.
The way he screams in that film, I've never heard anyone scream like it. It's unbelievable. So we thought, all things considered, people were upset that you mentioned Home Alone, so why not double down and mention the other ones as well?
That's brilliant as well, because actually Ben Travis, who came on the podcast a few weeks ago, mentioned that he found Home Alone 2 quite disturbing, because while Home Alone 1 is like Kevin is doing what he's got to do to protect himself and his home, he actually sets out to kind of just deck out this random house and lure these burglars to it this time. He's basically just doing it for his own sadistic amusement at this point.
I was going to say, there is a level of sadism in this film. Like, he is enjoying this a bit too much, and
he's into it. Like, I would like to see now a sequel, an actual sequel with Macaulay Culkin, who now at this point is a serial killer or something.
And he's got the aesthetic for it now as well, bless him. He's got the look. After Party Monster, I think all bets were off. So
bless him.
I would love to see that, like a dark Home Alone movie where Kevin McAllister is killing people. Would be
incredible,
right up my street.
But so not much to recommend beyond the second one, though.
No. I mean, once French Stewart and people like that start getting involved, and you lose Macaulay.
Yeah.
The rest of them, you can just, They are home invasion movies still, but they're not very good.
Not very good. There you go. All right, so that's the Home Alone sequels. You can check them out on Disney+. What's next?
You added this, mate. I didn't fucking add this.
I was just trying to think of a fifth one. So next up, I added this. The Borrowers from 1997.
In every city, in every house,
Unseen, unsuspected, they borrow our possessions. They watch our every move. Now, it's time to see the world through the eyes of the borrowers.
Amazing. Tiny little people.
But one man
Ta-da! 24 luxury apartments in the place of one house.
is out to destroy their home.
I want this house flattened, and I want it flattened today.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking, oh, well, there's another one about people living in... I was thinking about movies where people live inside the walls, and this is...
The Borrowers definitely
your
do.
absolute classic, right? We mentioned Freehold earlier. I've talked about Housebound in depth this series. I love a good movie about people hiding in the walls, and The Borrowers is kind of the OG, right, in that regard.
Banger. Just, tiny little people nicking all your stuff, making a little world in the walls.
Yeah.
And then John Goodman comes along and causes chaos.
So good. Love it. It's got a fun little British cast of people like Jim Broadbent and Celia Imrie. I loved it as a kid in the 90s. Haven't seen it since. I don't know if it holds up, but from what I remember, it's a fun time.
Anything to get us up to 5, eh?
Exactly. There you go. So that's The Borrowers from 1997, which you can stream on Now TV. And last but not least, Bradley.
When I pitched this...
I'm into it.
It's funny. I think we need to talk about Bruno because let's talk about Encanto from 2021.
Casita? What's going on?
The magic is in danger. We gotta get out of here!
We must protect our home. We must protect our family.
This is my chance. I will save the magic. Wait. How do I save the magic?
Incredible. I mean, again, it has actually been mentioned by various guests across the scope of this season. People have joked about how Encanto is technically a home invasion movie. Technically it is, right?
Technically it is. Bruno is living in the walls. I mean, they kind of know he's there, but also there's a lore and stuff behind him.
Yeah.
But also the whole film is about the sort of disintegration of home, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that we've been, in a way, this makes a great pairing with Cachet.
It really does. It really does. Love that.
The double bill you never knew you needed. Michael Haneke's Cachet and Encanto.
Fantastic. Some banging tunes in that film as well.
Yeah, there's a few bops in it and stuff. And, it is about a family unit being torn asunder and torn apart from within, and the house itself, decaying and crumbling as a result. And realizing that, in order to stop the rot, so to speak, the family needs to band together, much like they do in all these other home invasion movies where they fight back and kill the would-be perpetrators,
Love it.
So, I mean, what better way to finish the also rounds than Encanto?
Incredible. There you go. I'm gonna whistle through those 25 movies one more time,
sure.
Just as a little reminder. So in our first kind of main, more traditional home invasion section, we've got Mandy, Dead Man's Shoes, Cape Fear, Martha, Marcy May, Marlene, and Knock Knock. Then in our home improvement section, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, Mother's Day, Demon Seed, 1 Hour Photo, and The Stepfather. International home invasion movies, we've got Dream Home, Sleep Tight, Cachet, Door, and Visitor Q. Our extreme category, as Brad called Homes Under the Hammer, House on the Edge of the Park, August Underground, Trauma, Kidnapped, and Fight for Your Life. And then Kids Home Invasion, Mouse Hunt, Monster House, Home Alone sequels, The Borrowers, and Encanto. Have we ever had such a diverse list of also rans?
Listen, we really went above and beyond to make sure that we left no stone unturned when it came to horror home invasion.
I love it. It's incredible. There you go. Brad, if I had to ask you for one favourite out of that whole list, what would it be?
God, you do this to me every time and I forget.
I know.
I do that. It's like a recurring thing. Let's start from the very top, and I would say Mandy.
Yeah, peaked at the very top there for you.
Yeah, it's all downhill from there.
Yeah, I will go It might have to be Dead Man's Shoes, which is the second one on the list. So there you go.
Right, so diminishing returns.
Yeah, completely, because they're both pretty spectacular movies. There you go.
Great films.
Well, Bradley, thank you. This has been, as ever, such a joy. I'm sure people will get in touch with us, let us know, what we missed, what didn't make it, how much we're too biased towards recent movies, all of that. That's fine. Direct all of your feedback straight towards Brad Hanson.
Straight to me.
Where can people find you online, Brad?
To moan about your favourite film not being mentioned, you can find me at any of my social media handles. So that's X, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, all that. You can find me anywhere at Had Branson.
Lovely. And you've got your own podcast now as well. Give us a little plug for that.
Sure. I finally pulled my finger out and made a podcast with my friend Ash. It's called X Rental. We explore the 19s sort of video shop experience, talk about 90s movies. Mike's on one of the episodes, obviously EOH alums.
Talk about David Lynch, obviously.
Talk about David Lynch, honestly. Becky and Louise from EOH alums also are on it, understood the brief a bit better and decided to not talk about something that they have talked to death about. So, the entire season 1 is out wherever you get your podcast. It's called X Rental. Give it a listen if you like bickering.
Love it. Brad, thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
And that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening, and a huge thank you to my wonderful co-host and friend of the pod, Brad Hanson. So please do get in touch. Let us know what you thought of this week's recommendations. Are there any titles that we missed? I'm sure there are many, and I'm sure you can't wait to get in touch. Email me, evolutionofhorror@gmail.com. You can also find us on all the socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, Threads, etc., etc. If you want to discuss this week's episode with fellow listeners, there are 2 places you can go. You can join the Evolution of Horror Discord or join the Evolution of Horror discussion group, which can be found on Facebook. If you want to support this podcast and get treated to regular bonus content, particularly while we're on a hiatus, then sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/Evolution of Horror. You can find this podcast in all the usual podcast places, and I'd be so grateful if you could drop us a little rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as that really helps us get discovered by new listeners. So, as we hurtle towards the end of the series, there are only 2 titles left to discuss in depth. 2 that we've saved till the very end, 2 that weren't mentioned in this week's Also Rans. 2 of, in my opinion, the best and arguably most important home invasion movies of the last several years. Next week, I'm going to be joined by the wonderful Susan Kalman, and we are going to be discussing 2 incredible movies from 2019. Jordan Peele's Us and Bong Joon-ho's Oscar-winning Parasite. Yes, a Best Picture-winning home invasion movie. Join us next week for all of this and more on the Evolution of Horror.